and very soon George Groves will be appearing.
It's over. It's Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Sports Battle of Britain. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So the countdown from 10 to 1 on the huge screens all around, and now the appearance of George Groves.
George Groves!
Well, a mixed reaction for the challenger, but it has to be said, mostly boos, as some of the sentiments he voiced in the build-up to the fight are replayed around the arena, and his image appears on a huge screen at one end as he throws a few mock punches. Very soon it will be for real. His big night has arrived, the one he's been working for so many years. During his camp, he went back to the Dale Youth Amateur Boxing Club in Shepherd's Bush in West London, back to basics, back to where he got the inspiration in the first place to become a prize fighter. He turns his back to the main portion of the arena, just trying to mentally compose himself this one last time. It took Carl Froch 6 years to reach this position, and so the crescendo of boos greets him as he comes into full view. There's a smirk. He winks at one of his cornermen as he now starts to walk towards the ring. It's about 50 meters or so from the back of the arena to the steps here, which are right next to our commentary position. And George Groves, after 5 years as a pro, makes it to world title contention for the first time. Skips up the 3 steps just in front of us here, and over the third of 4 ropes here, raises his left glove, and listen to the reaction. This is a sport for strong men, and George Groves is really going to have to hold it together now as he awaits the arrival of Carl Froch.
Mike, when they first was seen at the back there, it was mixed. It was a mixed reception. Once he put his body through the ropes, it was almost unanimous boos. Adam mentioned to me, he whispered into my ear, it was a bit like the DeGale situation. I think it was a little bit more hostile. I think it was the balance was slightly further against Groves than it was against DeGale, but I've watched his face now for 3 minutes as I'm talking. I've not taken my eyes off his face. I've seen no telltale deep breath signs. I've seen no shrugs. I've seen no look at the heavens. I've seen nothing but calm on George's face.
Well, this is a real test of belief for George Groves in the red corner, just to our right here, just a few feet away.
Ladies and gentlemen from Nottingham, England, it's time to meet the champion, the Cobra, Carl Froch!
And so the name Carl Froch appears in lights once again at the end of the arena. And as it was with George Groves a few moments ago, some of the sentiments that he voiced in the build-up to the contest are replayed around the arena, and they're being listened to in almost silence here, and very soon Froch himself will appear, and that's the second of the tests here for George Groves. First of all to deal with the boos, and now to listen to the acclaim for Carl Froch, who for so long has said that he's gone without recognition, but judging by the response at the weigh-in yesterday and now here today, finally he is winning the respect not only of British boxing fans but British sports fans as one of the all-time finest boxers ever to lace on the gloves in a British ring. And now he raises both arms towards the roof of the arena. He looks so confident, just shakes out the legs and the arms, nods the head. He's alone at the moment, soon to be joined by his cornerman. So many great names have topped the bill in this arena. Nassim Hamid, who we spoke to earlier. Ricky Hatton, of course, the great hero of these parts. Joe Calzaghe, David Hay, and even Mike Tyson top of the bill here 13 years ago. Now Froch joins that list of great names, and here he can make another mark on British boxing, on world boxing, and add to the legacy of his career. This is his 11th successive world title fight, and so the roar increases once again, the signal that Carl Froch is making his walk come jog to the ring. He's really animated, really excited about this. He says, like he's never been for any of the previous 10 world title fights. And now the phalanx of cameramen, security guards engulfing Froch now as he reaches the ringside steps. And this time he will step in between the centre two of the four ropes, walks towards the centre of the ring, where he will hope to dominate the fight from, over towards his long-time trainer and friend and mentor, Robert McCracken. And so the crowd break out into full voice here on another great British fight night here in Manchester.
You can hear them, Mike. We've been hearing them, we've been anticipating, we've been waiting. Once again, it's the stories etched on the faces of the people in the ring. The new man, Paddy Fitzpatrick, in George's corner. Groves himself, Froch's man, even Robert McCracken in that corner. There is a tension in the air. It's not translating into any telltale signs on the boxers' faces, but Mike, you can sense it and feel it here at ringside. This is one of those nights. We get them every 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years. This is one of them.
George Groves is standing stock still in the centre of the ring, his two gloves down by the side of his thighs, waiting for John McDonnell, the MC, who is just a yard or so in front of him, to make the formal announcements. But Groves here is really staring across the ring here and sending a statement that he's not to be overawed. And tonight, on the biggest night of his career so far, at the age of 25, he's not to be denied. Froch, meanwhile, stays much closer to his corner, the blue corner, on the far side of the ring as we look on, where he will be housed for what might well be 12 rounds of torrid action. Groves now turns away, walks back towards his own corner, and soon it will be the formal instructions from John McDonnell. Just seconds to go now till the fight that's been 3 months in the making, and very soon the first bell will be sounding for George Groves against Carl Froch, the Battle of Britain, the 11th successive world title fight for Carl Froch. It's his debut at this level for George Groves. Can he make the step up in the way that Froch did 5 years ago?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for our national anthem? To the Phones for You Arena here in the city of Manchester. It's our main event. It's the Battle of Britain, brought to you by Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Sport, as he proudly presents 12 rounds of boxing for the WBA and the IBF Super Middleweight Championships of the world. All sponsored by Bet365, Scott's Menswear and Trifan Technologies. Entertainment guaranteed live here on Sky Sports Box Office and in the US on AWE, a wealth of entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, the officials at ringside have been appointed by the WBA and the IBF, all in association with the British Boxing Board of Control Secretary Robert Smith. The WBA supervisor is Mr. Dave Roden of England. The IBF supervisor is Mr. David McCulloch of the USA. And our steward in charge is Mr. Charlie Giles of England. Our 3 scoring judges from Roma, Italy, Massimiliano Bianco. From Huddersfield, Leeds, England, Dave Paris. And from New York, USA, it's Walewski Ronan. And when the bell rings, the referee in charge of the action from Doncaster, England, is Mr. Howard Foster. Ladies and gentlemen, this great city of Manchester, and a very special welcome to our viewers joining us around the world. The waiting's over! Here we go! Introducing to you firstly, he's fighting out of the red corner. Wearing the blue trunks trimmed with white, weight in 11 stone, 12 pounds, 6 ounces. Undefeated, 19 contests, 19 wins, 5 inside the scheduled distance. Coming to the ring as the former undefeated British and Commonwealth Super Middleweight Champion. He is the reigning WBA Intercontinental Super Middleweight Champion. Ladies and gentlemen, from Hammersmith, London, England, it's St. George Road. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's the champion. He's wearing a black trunks trimmed with red and silver, weighed in at 11 stone, 13 pounds, 12 ounces. 33 fight record, 31 wins, 22 inside the scheduled distance, and just 2 defeats. He comes to the ring as the former super middleweight WBC champion of the world. He comes to the ring as the undefeated former British and Commonwealth super middleweight champion. Ladies and gentlemen, he has been involved in 11 World Championship contests. He is the reigning and defending WBA and IBF Super Middleweight Champion of the world. From Nottingham, England, it's the Cobra, Carl. Going 12 rounds of boxing for the WBA and IBF Super Middleweight Championship of the world.
So last of the formalities, the instructions from the referee, Howard Foster.
Okay, fellas, spoke to you both in the dressing room. You both know what I expect. Keep it clean, break straight away when told. Both you watch your heads in close. Good luck to you both. Touch gloves. Good luck, lads.
Well, in training, George Groves wore a hoodie that said, in order to achieve what most men don't, you have to be willing to do what most men won't. Carl Froch has been there many times in his professional career. Is George Groves prepared to go to the same place, the place of pain and of punishment? The referee and the 2 boxers now, the only 3 men remaining in the ring. The bell goes, and George Groves promised to get straight on the offensive, to throw 2 straight right hands. Was it a promise or a prank? Nothing so far in the opening 10 seconds. Groves starts with a jab, then there's an exchange of jabs. Both men landing in the centre of the ring. A slight blink from Froch suggested that there was a sting in the jab from George Groves, who started in lively fashion, and he's on the front foot from the centre of the ring. Froch is moving around laterally around towards his left. Now he switches towards his right. Groves again with that speedy jab. The first towards the chin missed. The second landed on the torso of Carl Froch, who's looking slightly apprehensive, slightly tentative in these opening skirmishes. And now Froch has got his back to the ropes just above us here at ringside, and he makes Groves miss with a right hand over the top, and then opens up with a two-punch combination to the body. It draws a roar from the crowd, but Groves takes it solid right hand from Carl Froch, as Groves then threw a lazy looking jab, and Carl Froch pinged in a right hand over the top onto the left hand side of the jaw of George Groves, who goes to the body now with a jab, flicks one to the head, a better one from Froch, lands high on the head of Groves. Now Groves lands a jab of his own towards the centre of the ring as the Froch fans get into full voice here, with 1 minute and 15 seconds gone in the opening round and the first of the close quarter clinches, and the referee tells them to start punching away, but in the end he has to separate them. Now it's Froch in the centre of the ring. George Groves coming forward in prowling style with the left hand down by his thigh, trying to invite Carl Froch to throw the right hand over the top. A good jab from Groves gets through onto the left-hand side of the face of Carl Froch, who's landed the most solid shot of the contest so far, an overhand right, but Groves is having success with the jab to the chin and to the body. And now Groves crashes in a big right hand. He threw a jab to the body, a jab to the chin, and then a crushing right hand, the one he said would do the damage, but now Froch lands an even bigger right hand, and there was just a stiffening of the legs of George Groves. Big punches being unloaded over the first couple of minutes here. 50 seconds to go in the first round. Explosive already. Both men living up to their verbal taunts and their insults. And now, where they once traded insults, they're trading punches and they're heavy shots. Both men have landed solidly over the course of the first 2.5 minutes of this opening round. It promises to be pretty special here. Both men have got reddened faces. They've taken some strong punches. Right hand from George Groves, and now he's setting to follow up another right hand, but he walks into one from Froch. But Froch is dumped with a left-right combination by George Groves. With 10 seconds to go in the first round, Carl Froch down on the seat of his trunks for only the second time in his career. A left-right combination from Groves, and Groves now goes on the attack. Another right hand, a left hook, and a right hand from George Groves right on the bell, and Carl Froch in trouble over on the far side, and Robert McCracken gets to work. But Adam Booth, what a sensational start by George Groves.
Well, like I said, I knew that George could hurt Carl. Now, when Carl sat down on the stool then, he was in a bad way, and he's also now in a bit of shock. George is a great finisher. George took a couple of shots in the first round, but if George can just get his cold composure now, set on him, and land a right hand in the first 30 seconds of this round, the fight's over.
Mike, there was a point there in that last 2 seconds there once Carl had got up. Now, I've seen him drop before, I've seen him hurt before. I've never seen him in that danger. As I said an hour ago, is this the night? Is this the time?
Well, Carl Froch has long boasted that he's got special powers of recovery. Never has he needed them like he does here tonight. He was knocked out in the third round by Jermaine Taylor, but this was a much more savage attack from George Groves, and Groves goes back on the assault again right at the start of the second round. Groves has to be careful that he himself doesn't walk on to a big shot from Carl Froch, who's on the back foot, still trying to recover his senses. They were heavy punches, a beautiful combination from George Groves, who promised that his speed would be the key, and he got through with 2 lightning fast punches. He tries another one of those right hands, but Froch claims him, holds him with his left arm, and clubs him with his right hand around the side of the head. It's in Froch's best interest here to just keep it tidy and just to keep it quiet at this stage of the second round. But Groves is going after him again. He goes towards the body, as he did at the start of that brilliant attack towards the end of the first round. Froch is working away inside. They're encouraged to do so by the referee. Can Froch find something now? to stem the flow of aggression of George Groves, who's still leaning in towards his man, the champion, who's in his 11th world title fight, but has rarely been in as much trouble as he was at the end of that first round. Still Groves goes after his man. Still he holds the left hand low, a sign of confidence, almost of arrogance in this, his first world title fight. He tries another right hand, but he's met with a decent left hook from Froch, who moves away again towards his left. But in moving to his left, he's walking onto the path. A right hand from Froch, and now it's Groves who has to cover up. Froch follows up to the body. Groves now swings around towards his right. The legs look solid. He looks to have taken the punch well. Many said that once Froch landed, Groves would be in trouble, but he has landed a couple of big right hands in each of the first 2 rounds, and still Groves is there. Just over a minute to go in this second round. Groves feints, motions to throw another jab to the body. This time Froch sees that dangerous right hand coming and slips underneath. They work away inside towards the far side of the ring. A left hook from George Groves just skittles past the top part of the head of Froch, who flicks out a couple of jabs. The third jab was beautiful. It jerked back the head of Groves. And Froch has got to find his rhythm, got to find his range, got to find his accuracy here, because George Groves is looking so sharp. Again, Groves lands that right hand over the top of the lazy-looking jab of Froch. All the time, George Groves has seen that right hand as the key to his success here, and he's been as good as his word. He's been landing it solidly over the course of the first couple of rounds. Froch tries a right hand of his own, but it didn't land with the kind of venom that he meant it to. He still hasn't got that timing because of that shot in the first round. I wonder how much has come back to the legs of Froch. He is looking solid in the centre of the ring, but he's deliberately keeping it at long range. He has to, until he really recovers from that punch. He tries a right uppercut, then a left hook, and then a clubbing right hand that was taken on the gloves of Groves, and the crowd roared because Groves slipped to the canvas, but the punch didn't land in the way that Froch wanted it, and Steve Bunce, Groves tried to mount the attack again in the second round, but Froch did well to keep it at long distance.
He did well to keep it at long distance. I thought Froch in the last 20 seconds, not 30, 20 seconds, just seemed to be regaining and recovering his head. What I have liked, that even when George went and what looked like he was being reckless, he's instantly going to a very defensive position. He's not being as wild as it perhaps looks at him. He's pushing it, he's forcing it, but he's not going crazy.
Yeah, George is waiting for Carl to make those charges forward. We caught him with the right hand when Carl did that in the first round, because Carl's very clumsy when he comes forward and wades in with his shots, leaves his head up in the air. So George is sitting low, stepping to Carl's right to set up the right hand.
Seconds out, round 3.
So Froch gradually working his way back into the contest during the 3 minutes of the second round. Round 3 underway of a scheduled 12. In the closing seconds of the first round, it didn't look like we'd get that far, as Froch was floored by a crushing right hand that followed a stiff jab from George Groves. Groves tries another one of those short dipping right hands. He throws it beautifully at long range and at short range, and it landed again over the left shoulder of Froch. Froch is moving around towards his right now, potentially away from the path of that dangerous, oh so dangerous right hand of George Groves, who motions again to throw another one. Left-right combination from Groves. This time the right hand just slid off the sweat-filled shoulder of Froch, who's back in the centre of the ring, throwing a couple of lazy-looking left jabs just to keep Groves distracted, keeping him at bay, fending off the latest of the attacks. And now Froch makes his man turn onto the ropes, but Groves is brilliant in swaying underneath the right hand from Froch. Still Froch hasn't been able to really land solidly, and he takes 2 good jabs from Groves. The younger man is looking the fresher man here. At 25, George Groves is 11 years younger, and at the moment it really is beginning to show. At the moment, Froch is looking like the man who's aging during the course of the contest, but he does have those big punches, he does have that remarkable resilience, and he does have that huge heart, and he's going to need all of his qualities here tonight. Another right hand gets through from George Groves as we move into the second half of the third of a scheduled 12 rounds. A very confident start from George Groves. Many said he would build up a lead in the opening stages. Now he goes to the body with a big right hand. He lands a flushing left hook onto the side of the face of Froch, but Froch now stands toe-to-toe in the centre of the ring. This is where the warrior spirit comes to the fore. And now George Groves is backed up onto the ropes, just above us. Froch opens up, right uppercut, right hook to the body, but Groves pushes him back towards the centre of the ring. Groves showing good strength, left hook from Groves. He fights back after a cluster of punches landed from Froch earlier in the contest. Terrific action once again, and there's a blemish appearing now beneath the left eye of George Groves, the first mark of the contest, a sign that he too is coming under pressure. He tries another one of those right hands over the top. This is the kind of warfare that Carl Froch has been involved in with Michael Kessler and with Jean Pascal and with Jermaine Taylor in the United States 4 years ago. But George Groves is finding himself in new territory here. How deep can he dig here to pull this out? Because Carl Froch is just showing signs of stepping back into the contest here and taking the upper hand. 10 seconds to go at the end of the third round. Froch tries to open up again. Groves covers up well, pulls the gloves to either side of his head, and so no success for Froch, but just signs there that Froch's strength was beginning to hold sway. Steve Bunce.
That period there, Mike, when Froch managed to get Groves over here on the ropes. Now, we talked about what he's done in the past. He couldn't sustain it. He was the one that lunged. He was the one that held. I am telling you, it's not the knockout. It's more than a knockout. He is struggling, Carl Froch. He is ailing. And if George Groves could just use a little bit more calm at him, and at the same time a bit of pressure, I'm convinced he's there. I've never seen him look like this when he's been hurt, when he's been troubled, and when he's had to come back.
George just needs to be composed and just not give Carl any success. Maybe just go a little bit more cute and a bit more defensive. Just stay behind the jab. Don't worry about even if he lands. Just give nothing away to take away a little bit of confidence that Carl might have got from that last round by getting a couple of assaults off.
Seconds out, round 4.
So into the second quarter of the contest, and Carl Froch clubs his black gloves together at the start of the round. He's ready for more. He's ready for battle. There are signs that he is gradually working his way into the contest, but there are signs also that George Groves has the edge in speed. He's been landing jabs when they've had exchanges of jabs quicker than Carl Froch, but Froch lands with a solid left hook there as George Groves moved away from the clinch and was just slightly complacent, careless in defence. 2 jabs, right hand over the top from Groves. This time Froch just sways out of range and he took the punch, but it was on a mixture of chin and glove, and so he nullified the power. Still Groves is looking determined, gimlet-eyed as he looks on at Froch and tries to look for the opening. Froch also on the back foot, flicks out a jab, moves around towards his right, again away from the dangerous right hand of Groves. An exchange of jabs. Sweat flies from the head of both of these men. They're in the centre of the ring now, and Froch is trying to dominate with that left hand. He's got a slightly longer reach. He goes to the body and then to the head. 2 solid jabs from Froch. He missed with a third one, and now Groves throws his own jab as he steps forward once again. Still in the centre of the ring. Groves looking for the opening for that left-right combination and to wing that right hand over the top of the left hand of Froch, which after he throws a jab often comes back low around by his waist, and so there is an opening over the top to land on the chin, and Groves took up that opportunity at the start of the first round and at the end of the first round noticeably, when, if you've just joined us, he dumped Froch onto the seat of his trunks. Only the second knockdown of Froch's professional career. Froch is on the front foot now, pressing forward. He knows that he has to now reclaim those points that he lost over the course of the first and maybe the second round as well. He had a fairly decent third round, and now he tries a left hook right hand combination. Groves shakes his head and says, "You're not going to catch me with wild shots like that," and indeed he didn't. Froch now throws a weak looking jab. It's a stronger jab from Groves. He tries the overhand right to follow up, does the challenger, but Froch sees it coming. Now a left uppercut from Groves gets through at the end of a cluster of shots from Carl Froch. Again, they were fairly wild from Froch. Another overhand right from George Groves. He's still looking for more success with that punch. This time he goes to the body with the right hand and then a left hook, but Froch sees them coming. Another big right hand as Froch tried to move away, and Froch was almost leaden-footed. He saw the punch coming, still couldn't get out of the way of another one of those right hands landed by George Groves. Just 15 seconds to go in round 4, and now Froch starts to open up on the ropes above us. A cheer from the crowd, and there haven't been many of those so far in this round. And now there's a warning from the referee, Howard Foster, not to punch on the break. They gave him a warning there, and he's giving Carl Froch a stern talking to. Now, the last few seconds of the fourth round. Another strong shot landing from George Groves, and he smiles at Froch. Froch smiles back, but again a round in which he sensed Groves had the upper hand.
You sensed that Groves had the upper hand, and he did have the upper hand, Mike. However, there is something about Froch at the moment. Froch is now starting to get possibly a bit of belief. For the first time in the fight, he actually looked like, not he was enjoying it, that's too strong a word, but he looked a bit poised, he looked a bit controlled. However, he is being out-jabbed, and what's alarming, the second jab is hitting him on the side of the head because he's turning his head away. He's not blocking it at him, he's not moving his feet, he's literally turning his head away. So the right-hand counter is hitting him on the ear.
He's always done that. Carl is what Carl is, and he fights the same way every single time. He's very, very wary of George's right hand, and it's kind of making him a little bit reticent to go on the attack. As soon as George's back hit the ropes, he got confident.
Steve Bunce, very quickly, we're a third of the way through the fight. How have you got it scored?
I've got it scored all for Groves. The second was close, all for Groves.
So they step off their stools then for the fifth round of what's becoming a pulsating contest, labelled on the posters the Battle of Britain, and it's proving to be one of the best fights we've seen in the British ring in recent years. Living up to the build-up and all the insults and the hostility, and now surely the two men have won each other's respect over the course of the first 12 minutes. We're into round number 5, and Froch tries to get off with a jab. Short, sharp combination again from George Groves, who's taking up residence in the centre of the ring, and now Froch goes to the body and the head, finishes off with a left hook, but Groves saw them coming and parried with a mixture of glove and then swayed away also. Good defensive work from the challenger, who's still got that mark by the left eye, but there's been some good work in the corner because it isn't at the moment limiting his vision. Now Froch starts to open up. Groves is in the neutral corner, far side of the ring, but once again Groves holds on and forces Froch back to the centre of the ring, and Groves looks undeterred, gets straight back onto the front foot, determined to prove to Froch that he wasn't hurt. Froch lands a jab as Groves went to throw a left hook, and the left hook landed short. Still Groves is looking so sharp and so confident for a man in his first world title fight, in only his 20th fight of his professional career. He squats down from time to time, does Groves, keeping Froch guessing. He sways from the waist, he moves the head, he makes the champion miss. He's really keeping Froch guessing here. Froch is made to miss once again with a jab. An uppercut from Groves goes astray as his only counter punch. Groves again tries that left-right that has caused so much damage so far in the fight, and this time Froch does see it coming and steps back just 6 inches or so to move out of range. Another one of those left-rights from Groves is taken, both punches on the black glove of Carl Froch, who swings around towards his left now. He's trying to get control of the contest on the back of his left jab. Now he goes to the body with a right hand, tries a left hook to the head, but they were so wild, and George Groves covered up with his elbows and his forearms and his gloves and took all of those shots with impunity. Now another jab from Groves towards the torso of Froch, trying to drive him back off balance and to find room then for the overhand right as Froch is found off balance and just swaying back. Froch tries a right uppercut. They wrestle in the centre of the ring and the referee comes to part them. Half a minute to go. This is round 5 of a scheduled 12, and still George Groves showing no signs of tiring. If that is what Froch was hoping for, then it hasn't happened yet. And now another left hook from Carl Froch onto the chin, and a mixture of glove also. Left hand from Froch towards the chin. Froch is trying to open up in a toe-to-toe battle in the centre of the ring, but again the punches were too long and too wild, and they landed around the side of the arms of George Groves. A jab from Froch, that was better, but Groves responds almost immediately with one of those right hands. Bell sounds to end round 5. Adam Booth, your thoughts?
Good round for Carl. George started to lose his composure towards the end of the round because of a couple of assaults. So the bell's come at a good time, and it's now time for Paddy Fitzpatrick to get George to calm down, remind him of the game plan, and go back to the boxing.
Absolutely go back to the boxing. And I'll tell you one thing, Carl has had no success at all with those flurries, Mike, which we've seen him throw since he was an amateur in the World Championships. We've seen him through his British titles, Commonwealth titles and World titles. The flurries are having no effect whatsoever on Groves. He's tucking up and comfortably taking all of them. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see Carl Froch now revert to single shots. One big shot, two big shots. That way, try and hurt Groves, because at the moment he's not touching him, he's not hurting him.
I don't think that'll work for Carl. Carl's not a one-punch hitter. He hasn't got the speed, so 1 and 2 shots won't work for Carl. That'll make George comfortable.
So round 6, we're heading ever closer to the halfway stage of a contest in which both men have had successes, but none like the right hand of George Groves towards the end of the first round. And in truth, Carl Froch has been struggling ever since to work his way back into the contest. It is still very, very close, with Carl Froch, we believe, winning that last round. And on my card, actually, it's all square. Steve Bunce has still got George Groves in front, but it can be seen in different ways from different vantage points around the ring. Froch is keeping it at long distance once again. Steve Bunce was saying he'll try to keep it at long range, and he is attempting to do that. Swings around after throwing a couple of jabs towards his left, dangerously onto the path of another one of those right hands, potentially from Groves, who's standing now, motioning to throw his punches once again, and he lands a big left hook, and he senses that Carl Froch forward off balance, and Froch is trying to work away inside with 3 crisp uppercuts. But Groves was too close for them to have any real power and any real impact. Another clubbing right hand from Groves gets through, and a left-right combination also from Groves now. And Groves senses that he's hurt his man again, but Froch just grimaces and gets back on the front foot, moves round to the centre of the ring, claps those black gloves together once again and flicks out a jab. But when is Froch going to land with the power and the accuracy of George Groves? Right hand from Groves, left hook from Groves, the two men standing toe-to-toe, and Froch comes back with a solid right hand of his own, and Froch is unmoved after 3 solid, clean-cut shots from George Groves. Froch stood there, and how will that demoralise Groves? Another right hand from Froch, but simultaneously took one from Groves, and again they open up in the centre of the ring, unleashing the heaviest punches they can unload. And now George Groves is made to miss with a right hand. Froch gets through with a left and a right, a left hook from George Groves. How on earth are the two men still standing here in the 6th round? We've just moved in to the final minute. Right hand over the top from Groves, forces Froch onto the back foot, close to his own corner. He swings around towards his right. He takes another jab from Groves. Any questions about the chin of Groves have been answered here tonight, and plentifully, as Froch goes forward once again. Groves is forced to back up, lands a right hand, drops his hands on the ropes. Does Groves, tries an uppercut, a left hook, Carl Froch, an uppercut, then another left hook, and Froch is trying to finish off his man here, but Groves covers up. Right hand from Froch. Groves is swaying and bobbing and weaving and trying to get out of danger. Just over 10 seconds to go, and Groves now is gulping for air. He's getting tired. The attrition from Carl Froch is beginning to tell. Seconds to go in round 6. Froch goes on the front foot once again. It's that warrior instinct drawing him back into the fight. Groves flicks out a jab, but it was a weaker one than he's been throwing so far in the contest. Froch now takes another jab on the chin as he gets a bit wild on the way in, and Groves fights back at the end of the round. A sensational round of boxing, one of the best rounds of boxing we've seen in the British ring for a long, long time.
Mike, one of the best rounds of boxing you and I have seen in all of our combined years. There were moments there when it out-rockied. They stood toe-to-toe. That's not a cliche, it was a fact here tonight, and they landed with so many big shots. I thought for a second Howard Foster was going to make them take a breather. It was that intense. However, at the end, who's the tiredest as they walk back to the corner, Adam?
I think they're both tired. When Carl was assaulting George then, I was looking in George's eyes and he saw everything. He was looking at everything. He's prepared for those assaults. Carl's walking into George's right hand as he's going in, and that is still the punch that could well get rid of Carl Froch.
10 seconds, corners.
Very quickly, Steve Bunce, how have you got it? Halfway.
Halfway, I've still got George up by about 3 points or 2 rounds or whatever it is.
Seconds out, round 7.
So Carl Froch stares at his cornerman Robert McCracken as they move into the second half of the fight. And who will be the worse for wear after that astonishing 6th round when both men landed with such heavy shots virtually throughout the 3 minutes? Every single spectator on their feet here in this arena in Manchester, where there's been so many great fights. 2 good jabs from George Groves at the start of this, the 7th round. Good work, and now Froch goes to work to the body with a crucifying right hand just beneath the left-hand side of the rib cage, and now a left uppercut from Froch gets through, and Groves is forced to hold on, and Groves wanders back and bounces off the rope. Is that a sign that he's just beginning to get tired? There's a stern warning from the referee for both men, but they're fighting on instinct here. They're not listening to instructions. They have eyes and hearts and souls only for victory. Carl Froch once again is on the front foot, but Groves is still snappy, still sharp enough to try to land that overhand right. He takes a jab again from Froch, who grimaces as he throws it and gets himself set for a follow-up attack. Groves comes forward with 4 punches, left, right, and Carl Froch just stepped back out of range and made his man miss, but also missed the opportunity to make his man pay. Groves again tries that left-right combination, and then there's a slight gap before he throws the left hook also. All of them parried by the gloves of Carl Froch. The 7th round of this fight for the WBA and IBF belts between 2 men worthy of world champion status, but which one of them will leave the ring with those garlands tonight? 2 jabs again from Froch as he steps into his man, almost sideways on. Groves with his back close to the ropes over the far side of the ring, a position most thought he would take up right from the opening bell. Instead, he's been on the attack. He lands a stiff jab. Quite often when they throw jabs simultaneously, Groves gets there first because he's quicker and he's sharper. Another right hand from Groves, and the legs of Carl Froch buckled. He just almost squatted down there and held on to Groves as Groves came forward. Froch blinks as he comes out of the clinch, and this time holds both hands high, and noticeably Froch doesn't step forward. He's flicking out the jab from the center of the ring, but then stepping back out of range. It was another very solid shot from George Groves, and another one gets in, but this time Carl Froch takes it once again, and the shots from George Groves silencing the crowd. Carl Froch this time tries the very same combination, straight left and a right hand. 20 seconds just under to go in this, the 7th round. Froch driving on again, but another good jab from George Groves. Always the quicker when it comes to the exchange of that lead-off punch. Both men boxing from the orthodox stance. Groves now moves around towards the center of the ring. What a test of his will and his resilience this will be. He lands a good left hook, then a right hand, but Froch takes them and drives him back to the ropes, right by his own corner, the red corner. One last flurry at the end of the round from Carl Froch. How did you see that round, Steve Bunce?
I gave that to George Groves, Mike. None of those punches in the flurries have been landing. They haven't been landing since the 2nd round. They're not landing now. Plus, Carl Froch's legs went there in the middle of that straight right. And let me tell you something here, Mike. We talk about the intensity of the Ben and Eubank 1 and 2. You and I sat together on those fights, and this has matched that. This has matched that. That was my era. That was my peak. And this has matched that, Adam.
Yep. Carl's attacks now don't look as dangerous. They look a little bit slower, a little bit more pensive. And as long as George now just keeps his composure, keeps stepping to the right, keep looking for that right hand, he can now just start to clear the distance in this fight.
Seconds out, round 8.
So round number 8, the territory in which Carl Froch quite often takes control of his fights with that great strength. He is such a natural super middleweight. We were at lunch a few weeks ago and he was eating a full 3-course meal. He opens up again now, tries to impose that strength on George Groves. He lands a big right hand, and Groves has to cover up on the ropes and drives Froch forward once again. A warning from the referee to Froch for holding on inside. But Froch has success at the start of this, the 8th round. And he leans away awkwardly as Groves gets set to throw another one of those left-right combinations. 2 jabs and a right hand from Groves get through. Big left hook from Carl Froch and a right hand to follow up. And he forces back the jaw of George Groves with the elbow. And Howard Foster here, the referee, is going to call a timeout. And there'll either be a stern talking to or a point deduction here for Carl Froch. There was deliberate use of the elbow by Carl Froch, forcing back the chin and the jaw of George Groves. Groves sent to a neutral corner while Howard Foster gives Froch a stern talking to. Froch is trying to make it ugly because he's losing the test of boxing skills here, because he's being outpaced and outpunched at times by George Groves, but he's managing to hang on in there, and he throws another couple of jabs to follow up the success he had at the start of the round and in driving Groves back to his own corner. And now Groves lands another jab, a second jab, and you see that spray of sweat again leave the head of Froch, and Groves sways underneath the follow-up attack from Froch and then pops out a jab onto the side of the head. Froch opens up again now, almost caveman style, Street Fighter style, in the centre of the ring. He wants to drag Groves into a brawl here. Groves throws a right hand over the top, holds on again as Froch drills him back towards the ropes on the left-hand side. As we look on here, we're heading towards the last minute of round number 8 of a schedule 12. Carl Froch down in the first round, but trying to work his way back into the fight. Short, sharp punches and medium range ones again from George Groves. And Froch, in trying to get out of the way, cannot find the speed or the accuracy to throw a counter. And now the left eye of Carl Froch has a blemish beneath it, and there looks to be just a slight lump above it also. But he can still see clearly, but will it be clearly enough to avoid that right hand coming down that flank from George Groves? There it comes again from Groves, but this time it went over the left-hand shoulder of Carl Froch, and Carl Froch moved away from a clinch and followed up with a left uppercut and a right hand over the top. And once again the referee separates them, sends them back to a neutral corner and gives them a stern talking to in the centre of the ring. It is starting to get ugly, but it's all from the heart for two men here. They've got so much in the way of boxing skills, but now it's come down to willpower and desire and determination, and there are still 4 rounds to go after this if they get that far, because they unload again in the centre of the ring. Froch drills Groves back to the ropes, misses with a right hand. Groves tries to counter. Froch goes to the body. Groves swings around onto the attack once again. Brilliant left-hand jab again from Groves, drives his man back, and it looks as though there's a cut on the high part of the head of George Groves. Maybe a clash of heads or an elbow there somewhere. Now Groves tries another right hand, but he takes a left hook from Froch in mid-punch. Terrific stuff again from both men in the closing seconds of round 8. And there is a cut. It's on the right-hand side, high part of the head of George Groves. Mick Williamson in the corner will get to work on that. It doesn't seem to be too dangerous. Importantly, the blood won't be flowing into his eyes, but there is a cut there for George Groves. But I would suggest that that's nothing to concern him. Steve Bunce.
Paddy Fitzpatrick, I think, very unhappy with Howard Foster, thinks that maybe George could do with a little bit more protection, and he may be right. I think one more infringement from Carl and he could lose a point, which could be crucial. I think at this point, one of them has to start to box. I know what you're saying, Adam, and that won't suit Carl, but I think the guy that can box between now and the last round, not the guy that can slug it out, not the guy that can prove his guts, if one of these guys starts to box and uses his brain just slightly more, I think that could be decisive. Sorry, Adam.
Well, I think George is well ahead.
So do I. Absolutely I do. But it's 4 rounds. Can he go toe-to-toe for 4 more rounds?
I don't think he needs to.
That's what I'm saying. So if he boxes a bit more, it's there.
And so we move into round number 9. And the referee brings them together here at the start of the round, telling them that it's got to be cleaner than it is. And Groves points towards Froch as if to say he's the man employing the dirty tactics here, the dark arts as they're known. An exchange of jabs right at the start of this, the 9th round of a schedule 12. Groves is on the front foot, trying to force Froch back to the ropes directly above us here. Potentially just 12 minutes now for Froch to turn this contest back his way. He leans in with a long, rangy left jab and 2 more, and a third one now, trying to find the range for that follow-up right hand. It has to be said that only once or twice has he landed with real venom here, but he has been getting through. Another right hand from George Groves, and still Froch doesn't see it coming, and still it stirs him, and still it forces him onto the back foot. Now he stands his ground, Froch, in the centre of the ring, tries to work away to the body again. Right hand from Groves gets through for the umpteenth time, and again on the ropes, and a left hook this time from George Groves. But Froch takes it, and at what point will Groves become demoralised. And now Froch lands a left hook, and it's Groves that's in trouble. Groves is holding on. Groves is swaying, and it's Groves' legs that are rubbly now. It's Groves' legs that are unsteady, and Froch is on the attack. He's taken some heavy shots once again in the round, and there's more than half of round 9 to go. George Groves now on the back foot. Froch is getting clumsy. Right hand, left hook, big right hand from Froch, and a left hook, another right hand. George Groves is in desperate trouble, and the referee saves George Groves. He waves it all off. George Groves protests at the midway section of the 9th round. George Groves cannot believe it. A flurry of punches on the ropes just above us. When Carl Froch looked to be losing the fight, he produced that warrior instinct, and as boos ring around this arena, Carl Froch is held aloft by his camp. He is still the world champion, but many will suggest that he's lucky to be so.
Mike, I'm not quite sure what to make of that. I know George sagged a little bit there, but so did Carl several times. I know George maybe didn't throw a punch back for a few seconds, but that's the way he was defending himself all night. The people here are throwing things into the ring. The cheers, they're muted. In fact, the cheers, we've got boos again. It started with boos, and now it's ending with boos. This time, they're boos of support for Groves, not boos of hate.
And what a sorry end to a night that was billed as one of the great nights of British boxing. For 8.5 rounds, it was the most magnificent exhibition of skill and of heart and desire. And the cheers are ringing around this arena now for George Groves, who moves to all 4 corners of the ring and takes the acclaim, because there is a genuine feeling here that he should have been given at least another chance. And now Groves goes over to the far side of the ring, and now there's a sign that there might just be some animosity festering here. Groves went over to shake the hand of Carl Froch. I don't know what was said. There are so many people in the ring, and there is great danger here of something very surly and very unsavoury breaking out. There is a phalanx of security guards, and the 2 camps now are having to be separated in the centre of the ring. The fight has ended at around the midway stage of the 9th round. As you can sense with the noise all around, it's ended in controversial fashion, because Carl Froch was on the attack. George Groves was on the ropes. Yes, George Groves was struggling to defend himself, but as they moved away over to the far side of the ring, the referee put his arms around George Groves and said that he'd seen enough, and the fight was called off, and that led to the hissing and the jeering here that is the soundtrack to the latest win in his 11th world title fight for Carl Froch. Not, I'm sure, how a fighting man would have wanted it to finish.
Mike, you know, I'm still trying to see the punch that unhinges George. Maybe it's that punch there. It's a loose right hand behind the ear. You know what, Mike? I'm going to have to study the film here, because if I think what's happened here has happened, if Carl Froch has refused to shake George Groves' hand at the end there, George Groves is going to leave here with 21,000 fans, and Carl Froch is going to lose 21,000 fans. Listen to what they're chanting now. We can't repeat it. Mike, we've seen this. It's happened before. There's been a transformation here. The punters are not happy.
We always say that we'd rather a fight stop too early than too late, but when it's at World Championship level, you sense that a fighter is at least given a second chance, as Carl Froch was. Yes, in a sense he was saved by the bell, but George Groves was ahead by 5 rounds on one of the judges' scorecards, and by 1 single round, which is how I had it, on 2 judges' scorecards. So it was Carl Froch's fight to chase, and let's give him credit. In the end, he landed the punches, which did leave George Groves in desperate trouble. There is every chance that he would have finished it anyway in the 9th round, but there is a sure feeling here that George Groves should have been given another chance. Over on the far side of the ring, in a neutral corner, George Groves jumps up both feet onto the bottom rope, raises his gloves towards the roof of this arena, and the crowd almost raised that roof in their acclaim for the loser. In their sense here tonight, the loser is very much the winner, but we shouldn't really take away from Carl Froch in the way that he came back, refused to give up, and then unleashed that murderous attack on the ropes towards the end of the contest. And still, George Groves' camp are trying to manhandle their way over towards the Froch camp. And again, there is grave danger of this turning very, very ugly. What we hoped would be a wonderful advertisement for British boxing is in danger of turning into something completely the opposite. George Groves now on the neutral corner, closest to us, does the same again. Jumps up onto the bottom rope and thanks the crowd for their applause. And there's a carton of drink of some kind has just been thrown into the ring at this stage. And this is going to be a severe test of the security arrangements here at ringside, because these two men somehow are going to have to be kept apart, as are their camps. The security men now are guarding both sides of the ring, and still we await the official announcement. Carl Froch has retained his titles. He won the fight in the 9th round. He did have Groves in trouble, under pressure, but there is a feeling that the referee has stopped this too early, and Groves should have been given a count and a chance to at least throw back. He did have Carl Froch in trouble at the end of the 1st round. But now George Groves, for the first time as a professional in his 20th fight, will leave the ring as a loser, and there will be resounding calls as soon as they leave the ring for a rematch here. And you have to sense on the evidence of tonight that there will be one, because for all that Carl Froch was behind on all 3 judges' scorecards, you also got the sense that perhaps he was beginning to work his way into the contest. There were definite signs that he was surprised by what George Groves brought to the ring. He brought sharp, snappy punching, and he brought great heart, desire, and a very strong chin, which many had questioned.
He brought all of the things that we knew he had, Mike, that Carl quite rudely suggested he didn't. What needs to happen here, Mike? It's quite simple. Clear, and I'm going to say it, clear the bloody ring. This is an absolute shambles. Clear the ring. There used to be a time where so few people could get into the ring. This is chaotic. Get 25 of those people out of the ring. We've seen George try and get over there. He's been refused. Get them out of the ring.
Ladies and gentlemen, 1 minute and 33 seconds of the 9th round. Groves in no position to defend himself, therefore your winner, and still the WBA and IBF super middleweight champion of the world, the Cobra, Carl Froch. And let's show our appreciation for St. George Groves.
Well, in terms of the crowd reaction, the roles have been reversed. From their entrances into the arena here, great cheers for Carl Froch earlier in the evening, only boos here as the decision is announced. And still now, the two men are waiting to talk, and finally now, they talk sensibly, calmly, towards the centre of the ring, without any of the needless hassle that was produced by their cornermen and camps earlier on, immediately after the stoppage. The two men now talking, although it looks as though it's anything but polite, but they're having a conversation here about what happened, and Groves is clearly trying to tell Froch that it shouldn't have been stopped. I thought I saw tears in the eyes of Groves, Steve, when the decision was announced initially.
And there were tears in his eyes when he was cuddling Paddy earlier. What's happening now? Okay, Eddie's saying, don't worry, leave it alone, Carl. George has been rebuffed here. George went over and he's been rebuffed. That's why George has got that face. And Carl will get out of the ring and he'll do his fantastic PR bit. That's finally nice. An embrace at last.
At last, the two men have shaken hands. And so now there is only applause around the ring, because let's not forget that for 8 rounds they produced unforgettable boxing here, of the kind that we would love to see again. Will there be a rematch? There'll be resounding calls for them to do it all over again.
It's a shame. The stoppage was awful. Yes, George was buzzed, but no, not a fraction of how Carl had been hurt during that fight. George was so far ahead on points. I cannot understand why that fight was stopped. I think Howard Foster panicked there, and it's a shame. Howard's a good referee, and I have a lot of respect for him, but I think he panicked. I cannot make sense, and I don't think anybody could defend that stoppage, and I think it's awful. It's awful.
Adam, we have to see it from a different angle. We need to have a look and see if we can see George's eyes. It's no good, as you know, 5 seconds later. However, there is one slight problem. Howard Foster's intervention, because of the nature of the fight, the speed of the fight and the flow of the fight, wasn't clean. At the point he actually wrapped his arms around George, George was fighting back. George was okay.
It's like he stopped it by accident.
If anything, I think he just stopped it. If he was going to stop it, I think he might analyse that tonight in his darkest moment, Howard, when he can't sleep, and think I was 5 seconds too late. At the point I stopped it, if I'd have waited 5 seconds, would he have been all right? Now, this is going to be the debate. I've got to tell you, I've seen one of the angles earlier from the other side, and it looked like in that 5 seconds that George was hurt. Now, here's the should he have 5 more? Should he have 5 more seconds? 10 more seconds?
He'd earned the right. He'd earned the right for the benefit of the doubt. He's a warrior. He's fighting for the world championship. He was winning the fight. He'd hurt the champion. He was keeping control of the fight. He deserved the right to continue.
I actually agree with both of you. I believe that what he'd done in the fight up to that point merited an extension, but I have to say I don't think the fight would have gone on too much longer. There was still, we'll wait for the official time, well, we've got the official time, but there was still 1 minute and 20 seconds or thereabouts to go. Too long for George to survive.
Mike, we talked at the end of the eighth and the last completed round. We talked then, and it was time for one guy to box. What time for one guy to move his feet? Time for one guy to think. And in the end, the great fear for George Groves and his people was to be caught when he was tired with a shot around the ear. On the chin, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Well, the interview with George Groves and now Carl Froch is just being relayed all around the arena, and it's a very sullen looking George Groves. I'm sure in days to come, when the disappointment subsides ever so slightly, he will realise what a part he played here tonight. And that's one of the shames as well, Stephen Adam, that it was turning into such a pulsating contest, one that, I mean, coincidentally has ended in the 9th round, as Ben and Eubank did in their first fight in 1990, and one that we still talk about. This would have been the same, but we'll talk about it for a long time to come for the wrong reason.
Well, let's hope we don't only talk about Howard Foster at the end and the confusion and the disgraceful and ugly scenes which will lead to a board inquiry in the ring. Let's hope we talk about some of those rounds, Mike, when they stood toe-to-toe, knee to knee. Let's hope we talk about the first round. Let's hope we talk about George's poise. Let's hope we talk about how rattled and how absolutely stuck Carl Froch was, and how hurt he was, and how he came back. Let's hope we do that instead of just analysing the dreadful conclusion.
And I tell you what, Steve, we love to make our documentaries about boxing and go deep into the soul of the sport. We'll have to make one about that 6th round. That was one of the all-time great rounds of boxing.
Well, you know what, Mike? I don't plan on retiring, but in 10 years, I'd love to do a 5 Live doc on the night we gathered on a very cold November for what was a sizzling, to borrow a term from Sky, the only one I'll ever use, a sizzling fight here.
Adam, I saw you at points during the contest. I know emotionally you must have been all over the place here, but at points you had your head almost on our commentary table here. Very difficult fight, difficult night for you to experience from this close up.
Yeah, because there's nothing I can do, and obviously with the history that I have with George, it was a difficult one, but now my overriding feeling is just such disappointment and slight anger, to say the least, towards the stoppage. Yes, the fight might have been stopped, or George might have rolled under the big swings a couple more times and grabbed hold of Carl and cleared his head. He deserved the right to show whether or not he could come back from that crisis, because it was his first crisis in the fight. Carl had 3 or 4.
You can't argue with what Adam says, but Mike, we like to err on the side of safety, and I'm not saying that was the case here. I'm not saying Howard Foster got it wrong. I'm not saying that, because I would like to see a different angle. I would like to speak to someone who's neutral. No disrespect to Eddie Hearn, but he would say that George Groves was gone. I'll speak to somebody else. I'll speak to somebody that was sitting over there. I'll look at it a few more times before I make a definitive. The way I looked at it, I think it was possibly a bit early, but not that early. Not that early. And Adam is so right. It takes a fraction of a second to duck under a punch. It takes a fraction of a second to claim a fighter. And I've got to tell you, there's been no exodus into the cold winter night here. They are staying, and you know why they're staying? Not to celebrate, they're staying to boo every single word that Carl Froch has said. And you know what? If they run out Carl Froch's family, all of the members of his family who said that George Groves will be carried out of the ring on a stretcher, perhaps they'll boo them as well. Perhaps we could almost have a medieval stoning and fruit throwing session, because let's get it right, the build-up was ugly, but it wasn't just the kid on the left of our picture, George Groves. Carl had his role to play, and at 36, in his 11th consecutive world title fight. He should have known, in my opinion, and I've said this before we went on air, and I've said it in other platforms, including the paper I work for, he should have known better.
Now, as we analyse the fight, do we praise George Groves for showing that he truly belongs at this level, which you would have known, Adam, but those of us on the outside always ask whether they'll be able to transfer what we hear in gyms to the competition ring. Is it time, though, for Carl Froch to start looking over his shoulder and wondering whether it's time to depart this business?
I don't think Carl will want that fight again, because if that fight goes again, I will now put good money on George definitely stopping him inside 4 or 5 rounds. George has proved to himself he belongs at this level. He's proved that he can keep his composure in this heated atmosphere. The one thing that was annoying is that he didn't get a chance to prove that he can recover from being hurt like that. I've seen him hurt in sparring. I've seen him recover very quickly, and I've seen him totally dominate the other guy.
Adam, let me ask you this. In the first round with a knockdown, then George looked so composed, Carl looked so gone. Would you... I know we can only second guess here. We're all lottery biased on the Sunday morning after the numbers are up. Would you have asked George to put his foot on the pedal slightly more in the second and in the third?
In the second and third round?
Yeah, second and third round.
I would have just said, now that you got him worried about the right hand to the head, keep sinking it into the ribs.
Yeah.
Because he was so terrified after that shot of getting caught with the right hand to the head. Change it up, stick the jab, hit him with the right hand to the body, because then that will confuse him as to which right hand's coming, and then whip one round the side. But listen, so what? George boxed a beautiful fight. He punched his way through a beautiful fight, and he deserved to have the chance to get the victory that he was clearly running away with.
Well, I know one thing, Mike. If the fans have anything to do with it, they'll try and make a rematch. There's no guarantee. Adam's absolutely right. But more than that, we wondered how George would be perceived after this fight, whether he'd get massacred, whether he'd lose on point, whether he'd win. We wondered how he would ever turn the crowd around, because there was a genuine feeling of hate. We've had that answer in whatever it was, 1 minute and 33 of the 9th round. We got that answer.
Steve, when you talk like that, and he did in the build-up, you have to fight like that.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, the flip side of that is when you talk like Carl Froch did about George Groves' glass chin, about how he's getting knocked out, how it's going back, taking me back 10 years to when I was fighting for British titles. You have to fight and defend that, okay? Listen, we know this business is full of hype. It's full of people reinventing what we've seen. You and I have witnessed some absolute disgraceful reinventions by people in the fight business. I just hope that no one tries to reinvent this as the minutes, hours, days, months and years pass, because we all know what we saw here tonight.
And we saw Carl Froch hold on to the WBA and IBF belts in the super middleweight division in the 9th round, but it was so close, because according to many here, and at regular intervals you can hear the boos ringing around this arena, mostly when Carl Froch is speaking, as he is on the stadium microphone at the moment. The boos are ringing around. They believe that he got a lucky stoppage win here tonight. My own view is that he was on the way to victory anyway, but that George Groves, after such a commanding performance across the first 8 rounds, should have been given at least another chance. And there are 2 blemishes beneath the eyes of George Groves, and he's looking around now, just wondering what might have been. Would he have been able to recover? Would he have found this strength and resilience that Carl Froch has shown so often during his career? But Carl Froch is still the world champion, but he's had a narrow escape tonight.
He finally looks, George, like he's ready to cry. He finally looks like he doesn't want to be here. All the people that are predicted for 12 weeks, when he gets in the ring, he won't like it. When he gets to the arena, he won't like it. When he goes head-to-head, he won't like it. When he gets to the weigh-in, he won't like it. When he gets to the first bell, he won't like it. When he gets to the first big right hand, he won't like it. Carl Froch and all of his acolytes and all of the people surrounding the fight thought that. And just finally here, at close to midnight or whatever the time is, George Groves suddenly looks like he doesn't want to be here, and I don't blame him. He is broken at the moment, not physically. The kid is emotionally drained there, and rightly so.
But as we've been saying, he has proved himself at this level. There will be bigger and better nights to come for George Groves, that's for sure. And there's warm applause now, finally, for the two men, because Carl Froch, we should not forget, has also played his part here tonight in what has been, for 8 rounds, a memorable night. But the talking afterwards will be about the stoppage, and was it too early?
Not just that, Mike, it turns out that Carl Froch did say in that melee we couldn't hear it. Maybe we'll get the rematch and sort it out, Froch said. That wasn't Groves. And then Froch was reminded about the knockout, and he said, to be honest, I've only just remembered I got knocked down, which is possibly the most humble thing, the first sign of humility we've seen since this fight was first signed.
Well, Steve, that's an example of where these men go, to those dark places I was talking about immediately before the first bell. Carl Froch was telling me that after his first world title success against Jean Pascal in December 2008, he couldn't stand up straight for 2 weeks, and all night long was calling his best mate Adam, and his name actually was Matt.
Eddie.
We're with Eddie Hearn, the fight promoter. Eddie, your view on what happened here tonight?
Listen, I guess I'm going to have to see it again. From where I was sitting, he didn't look like he was fit to continue. That's my honest opinion. You know, he looked like he was clear to be hit, and when the referee stopped it and when he let him go, he wobbled back onto the ropes again. There's always the argument in a world title fight, you should be given every opportunity. And, you know, you even hear some fighters say, I'd rather be knocked out clean. But for me, he was hurt. He was sensational. Sensational. I mean, what he did to Carl Froch tonight, you know, the first round, just, I couldn't believe it, what I was seeing. And, you know, people will boo at the result, but what you've always got to do is give both fighters immense respect. Carl Froch looked like his career was over after 3 or 4 rounds. He came back, he took some of the biggest shots I've ever seen him take in his career. Should it have been stopped? I'll have to watch it back, but George Groves looked badly hurt.
It's very interesting, Eddie, because you were sat directly opposite us. Now, Groves had his back to us. We thought he should have been given a second chance, but you were staring into his eyes, and you say that he was ready to be stopped.
He looked like he was out on his feet from where I was. Again, I've got a different view. But then when the referee stopped the fight and then released Groves, he fell back onto the ropes as well. So I don't know. Listen, if it went on another 5 seconds, Carl might have knocked him out clean. He might have recovered. I don't think he would have recovered. But of course, the paying public wants to see, you know, a clinical finish and a clinical end. And, you know, I know that people want bang for the buck, but sometimes you have to look at the safety of the fighters. And the referee is the closest person. He knows it, he feels it, he sees it. And like in any sport, he has the final say.
And what we can't forget, Eddie, is the previous 8 rounds and what a fight they produced.
It was one of the best fights I've ever seen. You know, I mean, so much drama. And again, George Groves, you know, I always knew what a difficult fight this would be for Carl Froch. I didn't expect it to be that kind of fight. He took the middle of the ring, he pushed Carl back, he bossed him with a jab, he hit him with so many right hands. The first right hand he hit him with was a clean shot, but it was a quick shot. But Carl Froch must have eaten 100 of them in the whole fight. Some of the biggest shots I've ever seen. And, you know, I think when this all simmers down, both fighters will have a huge amount of respect for each other. You know, vice versa as well, because Carl Froch has to respect George Groves now, and George Groves has to respect Carl Froch. You can't not respect these men.
But ultimately, Eddie, it is a 12-round fight, and Froch was beginning to come on strong. For all that he'd taken, it's remarkable he was still there to do what he did.
I felt that 2 rounds before that, the fight was starting to turn. And I felt that, watching the fight, I honestly felt that Carl Froch was going to stop George Groves. Probably a round or 2 later in the fight. But George Groves started to get tired, his face was marking up, and his punches didn't seem to have the same zip. You know, he hit Carl with so many clean shots, but then Carl started to look tired as well. But it's something about Carl Froch, you know. I mean, I don't know how long he's got left, because these fights are immense for him, you know, and at times he looked, you know, not an old man, but at times he looked, you know, he was against a young, fresh fighter who was 11 years younger than him. So, you know, listen, the first thing the whole British public is going to want is a rematch. And, of course, I think over time that's going to build, because the first fight was such an epic fight. I didn't expect the fight to be as entertaining as that. I expected it to be more calculated, more technical, but it wasn't. Groves stood there at times and just traded leather, as he said he would do. And I wasn't sure he could stand up to the shots, but he did for so long.
Thanks for your time, Eddie. Let's go to Jonathan now with Robert McCracken, Carl Froch's trainer.
Yeah, it's absolute carnage here at ringside, I've got to say. I mean, the security guys, most of them were in the ring at the end. They needed to be out of it to escort the 2 fighters away. Rob McCracken, trainer of Carl Froch. Well, first of all, I suppose we've got to say many congratulations. Your man has retained his world titles. You know, another victory for him. So, but how did you feel about the way it finished?
Yeah, it was a good stoppage. George was badly hurt, and he couldn't have continued for another 10 seconds. He'd have got hurt. He's done it fantastically well. We knew he was a very good fighter. He's 25, 26. He'll come again, but a big talent. But Carl Froch is Carl Froch, and he wore him down and he broke him up and stopped him. But George Groves did fantastically well.
Many people's cards, Groves was well ahead. Does that carry any relevance at all in terms of stopping a fight like that?
No, not really. The stoppage was more than fair. He was badly hurt. He's a youngster. He'll come back. But listen, it's a 12-round fight, and Carl Froch stopped him. So that's the result.
How hurt was Carl in the early stages?
Oh, he was hurt. Groves is a big puncher. I knew that he could really punch. He's a very big puncher, and he's very good, and he's dangerous. But Carl defended his titles magnificently well, rallied, came through some sticky patches, and obviously landed big shots, and the referee thought George couldn't continue. I thought he was badly hurt. I think when people watch it on television, he was badly hurt.
And having heard you on 5 Live the other night, I know that Groves' performance tonight didn't come as a surprise to you. Did it come as a surprise to Carl Froch?
I don't know. Carl's just a real warrior, a gladiator out and out. And Groves became the mandatory, and he said, yep, I'll fight him. He didn't get his chance when he was coming through. He gave Groves his chance, and he defended his titles in magnificent style, although Groves boxed tremendously well and hurt Carl in round 1 quite badly.
Would Carl be up for a rematch?
Listen, Carl Froch has fought everybody who's everyone in the world of the boxing in the last 6 years. He's my mate as well. I'll give him a rest. He has nothing to prove. He stopped George Groves. There's nothing to prove.
Yeah. Adam Booth, quick one. Adam.
Firstly, Rob, congratulations. It was a rough night, and anybody that wins a fight like that deserves respect, because I know it was difficult. I have one question for you. Bear in mind how the fight was and how far George probably was ahead on points, and the fact that Carl was hurt more than he'd ever been in his life, and Carl was given the opportunity to get himself back in the fight when his legs were shaking. Do you think, I know we have to work on a sign of safety, but do you think George had earned the right for a few more seconds to see if he could weather the storm?
I've got to tell you, I honestly, and you know me, I'm a dead straight talker, George was gone, so what are we going to do, wait and see him get badly hurt? Carl's a severe finisher, and George was gone now. Now, Groves has boxed brilliantly, and he hurt Carl heavily in round 1 with a big shot. Carl's never been hurt like that in his career. But Carl Froch was all over him and had badly hurt him and was on him. And what was the referee supposed to do? Let him take even more blows that he wouldn't be able to defend himself from. I think when people watch on the TV screen, maybe they'll look at it a little bit differently. But I thought the stoppage was more than fair. I thought he was badly hurt and he wasn't going to recover. And I don't think, you think he was going to recover either.
Well, honestly, I don't know, because I have in the gym, I've seen him hurt and recover, and I've seen him hurt and struggle. Yeah. I mean, I've
never seen George Groves hurt like
that. No, I've seen him sort of be slightly blacked out as when he got hit by a left hook in the gym by Callum Johnson. He got himself up and then dominated his fight. But the bottom line is, yes, okay, we've got to protect our fighters because we live and die with them sometimes. But in a fight of this magnitude where George had shown what people didn't think he could do, did he not earn the right for a few more seconds?
Listen, you know me, I was an ex-prize fighter myself, and I've no problem if you let him carry on, but nobody in this arena genuinely thinks George Groves would have got through that. He'd have got knocked out.
But Howard could have given him an 8 count because his knee technically he's going to go down.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to argue with your view, but the point I'm saying is I don't think he'd have got through it, no chance.
Do you think that fight tonight is possibly a passing of the torch as far as British world-ranked super middleweights are? Do you think George now is the future of the super middleweights for our country?
Well, Carl's 36, so he's not going to box on forever, so it would be great to see George Groves come through and hit the heights that Carl's hit. Carl's been magnificent for the last 5 or 6 years at top level. George put up a tremendous effort tonight. As Carl said earlier, he's never been hurt like that. But listen, let's make no mistake about it. Carl Froch stopped him, and in pretty emphatic fashion. That's the result. End of story.
Whether we disagree or not, I'll say again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Because I know how hard. That
can I just ask? Do you think that Groves would have recovered?
Do I?
Do you think Groves would have recovered from what he was getting hit with?
Well, you just asked me that. Howard Foster could have given him an 8 count because technically he went down. Okay. So Howard could have given him an 8 count and then made the decision. Yeah. And I just think because George fell into Howard and it knocked Howard back and his arms accidentally wrapped round him, I think that's what made him stop it.
Okay, yeah, fair point.
Thanks for joining us, Rob. Rob McCracken there, very good of him to take the time. That was Rob McCracken, the trainer of Carl Froch, in conversation with Adam Booth, the recent ex-trainer of George Groves. Absolutely fascinating here on 5 Live Sport. Mike Costello, back to you.
Well, let's rejoin conversation with Eddie Hearn. Eddie, what would you suggest are the prospects of a rematch happening after what we've just heard from Robert McCracken there?
Fights are made through demand. Fights are made through the demands of the broadcasters and the demands of the fans, and everyone's going to want to see that again. Not only because many may think it was a controversial decision, but also it was an epic fight. I mean, I just didn't expect. I'm watching it back here on the screen in front of me, just seeing that first knockdown. It was one of the biggest right hands I've ever seen. And, you know, my views are a little bit different. I was right in front of George. I was literally a foot and a half below him.
He fell towards you. He looked directly in your line of sight.
He looked out on his feet. I mean, listen, it's my opinion, but I also understand the argument of it's a world title fight. A fighter should be given every opportunity. For me, it was only ending one way, in the state that George was in. You know, maybe he would have found a way to ride it. I don't know. And, you know, I mean, Adam, you know, has known George for a long time. So Adam is saying, yes, but I know that he can take, you know, he could ride it out and he could do that. But the referee makes the decision. And in his view, he couldn't have continued to fight, or he would have led to being stopped.
In falling into Howard Foster, because Howard was accidentally in the wrong position, in falling into Howard could have technically called that onslaught a knockdown and given himself time and George time, 8 seconds, to assess him and see if he was in a condition and if 8 seconds were going to be enough to get yourself together. Because when they're trained at that level, it only takes
Adam,
these brief moments.
Right. For me, you know, I could see every reason to let it continue, but I have to tell you, my opinion was that he was out on his feet.
One question, do you think that tonight a new star has been born?
100%. I mean, listen, you know what I think about George Groves. He's been part of our team. I think he's a wonderful fighter. In my heart of hearts, I didn't think he was ready for this level. He's absolutely 100% ready for this level. And, you know, like you said, the only good news is that we've got, you know, two. I'm just watching it back now. If you see him go, look, you see, you know, he lets him go there and he's out on his feet. But, you know, looking at it there, let's watch it back here.
Okay, so now just watch, right? He takes a shot here.
Big right hand.
Then another 2 shots, one there and one there, right? Now watch, he falls into Howard.
Yeah.
Howard could have called, Howard, but that's a knockdown there.
Yeah.
That's a knockdown. Take your time, give him an 8 count.
Okay, listen.
Because George argued with it immediately, so his head
but he
was
also
there.
fell back on his feet.
Yeah, of course, so it's a knockdown. But his head was in a position where he could argue with Howard. Okay, watch, now watch. Falls into Howard, there's a knockdown, do the count. But where he fell into Howard and Howard's left arm fell over George, I think he accidentally fell into the position of stopping the fight too soon.
Well, here's another talking point. We've looked at the 3 judges' scorecards. One had George Groves 5 rounds ahead, 2 wide for me. I had George Groves 1 round up, and that's how...
What was the other 2?
The other 2 judges also had George Groves 1 round up.
1 round or 2 points?
76 to 75 up.
Yeah.
So
see,
in a sense, they might have had that.
I had Groves
rounds.
2 rounds up at the time of the stoppage, and I also felt Carl was coming back into the fight. Not saying he would have won the fight, but I did feel that George was starting to tire. And listen, I just saw the stoppage there. I think it's 50-50 to be honest.
And let's not forget, Eddie and Steve and Adam, that right at the outset, when we were talking about how this fight might unfold, most of the suggestions were that George Groves would build a lead and Carl Froch would have to claw his way back, which is what he's done. And world title fights are over 12 rounds. And look, George Groves might have won over 8 rounds, but he's lost over 9 rounds. And that must be testament to Carl Froch and what he can do in the ring, however he does it.
Well, I don't think any of us should take away anything from either fighter. If Carl got the win, congratulate him. But for me, even if I'm impartial, and the crowd let you know what they believed as well.
You know, Adam, you know better.
In losing,
you know
George
what the
won.
Crowd want. You know, we've also got a responsibility, and you know what the crowd want. The crowd want to see a fighter finished out cold on the canvas, and we can't always be so barbaric. I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think one point that's very interesting is that Carl Froch took a lot more cleaner, heavy shots in exchanges than George did when it was stopped. But Carl never reacted in the same way with his feet or his body language. Now, you know, don't get me wrong, he was knocked down, but he got up and he was fine. But the interesting point is Carl Froch took a lot more damage in exchanges than George Groves with. So there's another argument there.
I also believe that Carl would have that fight would have aged Carl much more than it would have aged George.
Yeah, George is 25 as well. I mean, look, you know, Carl Froch is 36 years of age. He's a bit of a freak of an age. He may not want to fight again. You know, I mean, look, there were times in there when you're against George Groves, let's be honest, was all wrong for Carl Froch. I mean, you're talking about like a Mikhail Kessler, stylistically perfect for Carl Froch. George Groves was a nightmare.
And we talked about that. That's the one thing I said, that George had the wrong energy and the wrong style for Carl, and he proved it. It just, listen, it was let's remove ourselves. It was a fantastic fight. It was a better fight than anyone could have hoped for. With a disappointing ending, George Groves will become the super middleweight champion of the world.
I have to agree.
And Eddie, if Carl Froch decides he wants to go on another path, or indeed he retires, what would you suggest would be next for George Groves?
I think it's going to be difficult for Carl Froch to go down a different path because of what the TV and the public will demand. You know, you can't just say, look, you know, everybody in Britain wants to see the rematch, and so does your broadcaster, but no, we're going to go and fight somewhere else. You know, fights are made due to demand, and the demand for this is going to be so good, not just because it was controversial ending, but because the fight was so good. And I honestly don't know. I can't sit here and tell you who would have ended up winning that fight if it hadn't have been stopped there. You know, I think George Groves, I mean, take that incident away. As the fight was progressing, I feel Carl was coming back into the fight. I don't know whether George was tiring or, you know, what, but, you know, like Adam said, I think it's disappointing when you hear boos. I understand the public's opinion, but anyone who knows boxing, to see what both men went through tonight, and listen, I'm a big Carl Froch fan. He took a hiding in there at times tonight, an absolute hiding. And I looked at him at points and I thought, what motivates you to carry on at your age with your, you know, with your wealth and, you know, your family and your home, and you're getting beaten by a young kid who's showing immense talent and ability. How do you find a way to keep battling through? But Carl Froch always seems to find a way to win. If you don't think he should have won at that moment, he might have won 5 seconds later. He might have won 10 seconds later. He might have won the next 3 rounds and won it on points. But I just think, you know, you have to respect Carl Froch. And again, he's in a fight that is just of an incredible nature.
Whatever you think about the fight tonight, the result and which way it should have gone, I won't listen to anybody telling me that there's been a more exciting British fighter in the last 25 years than Carl Froch. Every time you come to this ringside, you tingle because you know something special is about to unfold.
Something special may be about to unfold, but tonight even Carl Froch, by his own incredibly high standards, his unique standards, managed to take us somewhere different. George played his role in that, but I think Eddie is right in the sense that at the end, and I think even you'll acknowledge this to a degree, Adam, in the end, Carl did emerge as the winner when there were times, as Eddie, to quote you, took a hiding, looked like his career was over. We've seen that, and I couldn't agree more. I echo exactly what you said. We saw yet another remarkable barrier-pushing performance.
Our commentary team here at ringside at the Manchester Arena, Mike Costello, Steve Bunce and Adam Booth. Thanks as well to Eddie Hearn for taking the time to join us at the end there, and Robert McCracken as well. No doubt we will hear from both fighters on our late bulletins here on 5 Live overnight, and reaction on the breakfast show tomorrow morning. Our festival of live sport on 5 Live is about to continue with the first ball imminent on the 4th day of the opening Ashes test out in Brisbane. But a dramatic night here in Manchester, and just perhaps 3 final thoughts. George Grove, well, he's lost his unbeaten record, but he is an undoubted star of the future. Carl Froch off the canvas to win his world title again, a legend of this sport. And perhaps most importantly, both these fighters leave the ring with their health intact. And maybe for all the debate about the whys and wherefores of the stoppage, isn't that the most important thing?